Hey everyone, I'm Josh Galvin, and this is Bob Gibbs, and this is episode 13 of The Truth in the News. And on this episode, we want to address one subject that we've actually been hitting on since the very first episode that we started with this, and that's having to do with the foreclosure process and how lenders are backed up with the amount of foreclosure filings. If you go back to a lot of the previous videos we've done, you'll see that that subject comes up a whole lot when it comes to answering the question of how's the market? You know, is it a good market? Should I sell? Should I buy? That question is always one that we come back to hit on. And right now we have two articles here. One from CNBC. We'll just take a quick look. It's hard to kind of tell actually, so forget that. One of the title is "Backlog of Cases Gives a Reprieve on Foreclosures." Another article from USA Today saying foreclosure notices fall to lowest level since 2006. Here's the thing about this specific one we just said that you'll hear Bob explaining perfectly is when you read about foreclosure notices falling, you can't assume that means that people aren't going in default necessarily. It's a whole different subject. So I guess I'll hand it to Bob to explain at this point. So yeah, can you elaborate on that point? You know, when people, because if I'm a buyer or if I'm a seller and I read, oh, foreclosure notices fall to lowest level since 2006, I must be celebrating in my head. But what's the real reality of that? What's that really mean? What's this trying to say?
Yeah, what's happened is that, and we've been talking about this a long time, that doesn't mean that there aren't millions of homes that are underwater or basically in a foreclosable state. It's just that what's happened is the banks have so many homes that are already in the foreclosure process, they can't keep up with the number of them, so they've decided to just kind of slow down. They're just not foreclosing on a lot of homes right now. They're still backed up, like I mentioned before. There's like this big lake with a dam in front of it, and they're just kind of sitting back there. And until they can get to the point where they can start processing them quicker and getting them sold, at that point they'll start putting more homes into foreclosure process, because they're actually there. There are people living in the home, I'm sure you all know this, that aren't paying mortgages. And
it is possible. It's weird. I mean, you know, it's so funny. People hear it, but I don't think they actually understand that. And the reality is people are sitting in their homes for many months without paying anything, and they're not getting any letter, or they're not getting any foreclosure filings on their home. And this is exactly what we're speaking about. So
yeah, a couple of little statistics though that are little, it might be scary or not depending on where you're coming from, but right now it takes about 3 years on average for a home to go through the entire foreclosure process in California. And to put that into perspective, in a normal time, you know, you're talking more like a 6-month period. So what's happened is there's all these homes that are in that 3-year kind of cycle right now on average, and all these other ones that haven't even had notice of defaults issued yet to them. Notice of default is the start of the foreclosure process. So what's happened is people that are in a situation where they're not making mortgage payments and they still haven't had a notice of default issued to them, they're going to be in the home at least a year.
Another extra year, right?
Yeah, not 2 to 3 or 4. Without making payments, because the bank would rather have someone in the home living in it as opposed to having someone just walk away and foreclosing on something, having it sit vacant until they can get it sold. Yeah.
So then, how does this backlog? And you know, actually, I want to speak on the word backlog. So I think you've all seen. Have you all ever seen footage of after the day after Thanksgiving sales? You know, when people are in line at the Walmarts or Targets or at the big sales, and like they all try to run through the doors, and they're all kind of stuck. But the whole crowd's there. They're all going to get into the mall. That's what kind of the foreclosure process is like. It's like, hey, these foreclosures are going to eventually, have to be dealt with, but they're all backed up trying to, and they can't be released in the same time. So that's the analogy I always think about when I think of this. So as a seller or a buyer, as both actually, what perspective what should they understand about this fundamentally before deciding anything?
What you need to know is, if you're a buyer and you're looking to get some kind of a screaming deal or steal a foreclosure, I mean, the only way you're going to be able to really do that if you have the sophistication and the resources to buy it off the courthouse steps. On average, a foreclosed property will sell for about 20% less than a normal resale home. However, a word of caution on that. A foreclosed home has things about it that you'll never know until you buy it. So there's no disclosures. You do your own inspections. You don't know what's happening in that home.
If you buy it just straight through.
If you do a foreclosure, because no one has lived in it. The people who are selling to you is the bank. They've never lived in it. They don't know if there's something underneath the ground there or whatever. So you can get them at a discount, but you're really kind of going into it to some extent blind. not knowing. So, you know, it's whether that's a good investment or not. It's kind of up to you. I mean, if you're a handy person, you're not afraid of finding stuff that's a little scary for a lot of us. Then you know, it's good. Go for it if you can find them.
And then how about the sellers then? Like I guess, here's the question. I'm sure you come across loads of times with sellers. You know, should I sell now? I hear the market is fill in the blank. Market's getting better. I hear prices are going up. I hear prices going down. Everyone's saying all of them. So, I mean, not that they're all right or wrong. How should they pay attention to this data and try to make a decision?
So if you're considering selling, first of all, this data, or the markets themselves, and we've had this talk on
different number.
They're highly localized. So you know, something may be doing very well in a neighborhood. You go a couple of neighborhoods over, and it's not doing very well at all. But in general, in the Bay Area, it's actually a pretty decent time to sell. Not because prices are going up, but because they're flat. And we don't know what's going to happen next month or next year. This is all, regardless of what any economist may tell you, this is uncharted waters. I mean, we're figuring this out as we go, and no one really has a crystal ball that accurate. What's going on right now. So all we know is what we know right now. And what we know right now is interest rates are really low for buyers, so there are a lot of buyers out there looking to buy homes. Prices seem to be pretty stable. In some areas they are going up a little bit, in some areas they're still going down a little bit, but in general in the Bay Area they're pretty flat. And there are a lot of buyers out there. I mean, there are people, there are homes being purchased all the time. I think last episode or episode before that, I shared with you a statistic that from March to April, we saw pending sales in this area go up 15%. When across the country they were down 11%. So go figure.
Right.
So for a seller's perspective, I think it's a great time to sell. From a buyer's perspective, interest rates are low. The only issue you have to be very cautious of is if you're looking just to buy a foreclosure or a short sale, first of all, there's a lot of competition for those. And as you can see by these two reports, there aren't a ton of them on the market. Although there are a lot of short sales, I will say that, but there are not a ton of foreclosures. And you really need to be cautious and careful. If you buy a normal resale home, you have disclosures. The owner has to tell you what they know about the home. It's easier to negotiate repairs, things like that. So those are the words of caution for buyers.
Okay, cool. And you know, as you're explaining, one thing I keep thinking, and you said this on another video, I forgot. I think it could be number 7 or 8. One of those for some reason is sticking in my thoughts. But basically, you mentioned how you know, inventory. You know, selling. If you're a seller wondering, should I sell now? Should I sell next year? I mean, you really got to think about inventory. You know, if you list your home today, you're going to be listed with X number of other properties. But next year, when you look at data like this, does that mean it's potentially that they can be listed with more people selling on the market in the same time, which would be bad for them because there's more supply? So
there is some likelihood that the banks will get more efficient at processing these things. And then you'll see a larger number of foreclosed properties hit in the market. And from a seller's perspective, that's a bad thing.
Okay. So I guess those are just the questions. Because there are no exact answers. No. You know, it really depends on what you need, right? But those are the questions you need to at least be thinking about properly. And don't read and jump to conclusions off of other people's data. Because I guess it's all local. We've been saying it since episode 1, I think.
Contact your local professional.
Exactly. So, alrighty. Well, that's everything. Well, good luck. Let us know if there's any questions.
Bye.
Take care.